Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us this beautiful Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's Tuesday. Just wanted to thank you guys for joining us today for the second installment in our parent workshop um, titled Positive Communication for Parents and Teens. We understand that you could be doing a million other things this morning, and yet you chose to be here with us. So, for that, we are grateful for your time. And I just wanted to thank you again for being here. My name is Will Safotu, and I come to you from the Family Resource Centers here in the downtown central region. I'm a school counselor, and I'm joined here today with my colleagues, school counselor Kim Yeremia and school psychologist Roxy Carboni. Together, we make up the team that we call the Downtown Central Region for our Family Resource Centers. And we are pleased to be joined today by our friend Cheryl Eskin. I will get into her bio a little bit shortly, but I wanted to just invite you guys for some housekeeping tips. Although we are on Zoom, we have set up this meeting to where we are asking that you communicate solely in the chat. If you have any questions or anything like that, we will try to communicate with you as best as we can. But any questions that you do type in, we will get to them at the end of our presentation. Um, Also, we are recording this session for our friends that aren't able to join us today, and we will be posting on our YouTube playlist on the LBUSD district channel at a later date. At the end, also, when it comes to the question portions, just for privacy, we will stop recording and we will allow you to enable your camera and your mic so that you can ask your question if you want to. You can also feel free to direct message me or Cheryl, and we will try to get to your questions as well. I think that's all the housekeeping tips I had, but I wanted to introduce to you guys our friend Cheryl Eskin. She is the program director at teenlineonline.org. They are a teen-to-teen hotline where teens can talk to one another about whatever they may have going on. It's such a great resource. They've got a website, the social media, you can also download an app, or you can even email them. She's also a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's also a parent to a teen and a preteen. So that being said, Cheryl, thank you again for joining with us today. We look forward to hearing what you're sharing. And without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you all for having me here today, and thank you all for taking the time to join with us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to warn you all, it seems to be a house-wide thing this morning that our internet has not been great, so the joys of Zoom. So I will apologize in advance if I do cut out and try to get back to you as quickly as possible, and let's fingers crossed that it doesn't happen again. So what we're going to be talking about today, as Will said, is positive communication for parents and teens, or improving communication, however you want to swing it. I'm a parent. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, so I know firsthand how challenging these ages can be, and also the challenges the pandemic has brought. So I don't any means to have all the answers. I don't claim to do this all right. Do this right all the time, but hopefully we'll take away some helpful tips for things that do work in the moments where we can implement them. Like Will said, I'm the program director at TeenLine. TeenLine is a teen-to-teen hotline. We started in 1980 based on the premise that when teens struggling, they're much more likely to turn to their peers than they are to the adults in their lives. And that premise, a lot has changed in 40 years, but I think that premise still definitely holds today. So want to make you aware of us as a resource. If you have a teen you feel like could benefit from talking to another teen, we train about 60 to 80 LA-based teens every year to be what we call listeners to their peers. It's a really intensive training program because they deal with intense stuff. So location may be challenging for a lot of you geography-wise, but if it's something your teen's interested in, feel free to check out more and interested in volunteering. Otherwise, just knowing as a resource, we say, we're here about whatever's going on. So it can be, we go the range of suicide, child abuse, to just relationship issues or just struggling with loneliness, anything in between. We're call, text, and email 6 to 10 every night because we are staffed by teens, so they have to sleep and go to school and things, and things like that. So I've been a part of Teen Line for a number of years. I actually started there as a teen listener myself a gajillion years ago. So I feel like I've spent my career working with teens. I really like teens. So hopefully this is sharing some of my wisdom accrued over the years. I also wanted to make you aware that we do publish a lot of good brochures on a variety of different topics. The QR code, if you're tech savvier than I am, that you can scan and take you right to them. If we were in person, I'd have these pretty brochures for you to pick up, but we are not. So you could download from our website good information if these are some of the challenges you may be having, and ideas and tips of how to talk to your teen or how to know if these things are a problem in these brochures. Then I wanted to kind of get into the gist of it, start talking about briefly why teens act the way they do. And if we were in person, I'd probably ask you to be more interactive in what you think. But one of the ways we've adapted to this weird world is that we're, a little less interactive sometimes. So one of the things I do to remember is that the developmental need for teens is to separate from their family. That's what they're supposed to be doing at this age. And I'm defining teen as usually middle and high school age, where they're supposed to be figuring out their identities, figuring out how they play into the world, who to be. There really is this developmental, biological drive for autonomy and independence. And I think we'll get into this. The pandemic has definitely, one of the hardest parts is really thwarted that for a lot of our teens. One of the things we also know about teens is that their brain isn't fully developed. They may be smarter than us, they may be taller than us, they may look like adults, but their brain is not fully developed. And that's something that we need to remember. We know now that brain isn't fully developed till 24, 25, maybe even later in boys. And the part of the brain that isn't fully developed is the prefrontal cortex, which is what controls logic, emotional reasoning, decision making. And so some of the times when you're puzzling, why did you do that? It's because their brain was wired that way. They didn't have the time and space to even think through the consequences, even though they do know better. It's just kind of that split second sometimes. We also see sometimes in teens a lot of mood swings going back and forth, and a lot of just emotions hanging out sometimes. And I analogize your 15-year-old who's overwhelmed to your 2-year-old having the tantrum in the floor of Target. Obviously, I think teens, that's the part of their brain that isn't always developed, where they just don't have the emotional bandwidth or emotional regulation to deal with all these strong feelings coming on board. They also, we have to remember, really motivated by pleasure and by peers. And that's another thing that's been taken away this year in the pandemic, which has definitely been a challenge. But we know that even really good teens together make really bad decisions because of that peer approval, of that desire, for pleasure. We kind of call teens in some ways all accelerants with no brakes. So they just go, 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 not always thinking the consequences. So it doesn't mean we excuse them. It doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable. It's just something to remember in the moments when you may be frustrated of how someone so smart can be so stupid. And excuse my language, and I really like those words, but that's just what came out today. We also know teens are an age where increased risk taking, that's part of, figuring out what they can get away with, who they, what they can challenge. And I think it's been particularly challenging with this pandemic, where we've had teens, not always taking it seriously or not following it the same way we have. And part of that is they're, believing they're omnipotent as well. Nothing's ever going to happen to me, or I can do this. So, and then again, just the importance of peers in their life and a need to fit in. If you can think back to your teen years, that is kind of an overarching need in some ways, to just fit in, feel a part of something. So we did have that on there. Okay, good deal. So what I want to talk about, I'm using the word typical of what we define as typical teen behavior. And then we're going to go through and talk about what's worrisome teen behavior. And I do want to caveat that, typical is a wide range. By no means is this list comprehensive. And I also want to acknowledge that a lot has shifted in this year plus of being at home. So to put that into awareness when we're talking about some of these behaviors. I don't know why those U's are there, so we're going to ignore those little red U's. But moodiness is definitely something that we see. Well, swings going from happy one moment to sad one moment to angry one moment, and not always knowing, not even always knowing why. We also see things like less affection and attention with parents, which can be really hurtful, definitely, especially if you've always enjoyed kind of a close relationship with your teen. It's painful for us, but realizing that that is a part of their growing up process. And that is, ultimately our goal is hopefully to raise independent adults function without us, without us monitoring their every move. Increased desire for autonomy, we already talked about on his user, which that's interesting. Self-involved, that's something to remember. I love teens, I choose to work with them, but I think at core, they are definitely into themselves sometimes. They are capable of great empathy and of being, these amazing people for each other, but sometimes they can get really bogged in their own world. We also talk about testing limits. We talked about already that is a part of the adolescent time period, is seeing what you can get away with, how far you could, how far you can push the bounds. Exploring identity. I'm not just talking about sexual identity and gender identity, although the teen years are a time when all of that happens, but also just who they want to be in the world. Do they want to be, they want to be known as a good student. They want to be known as an athlete. What are their values? How do they want to appear? So all of that, all of that sort of stuff is happening at this time. Also going to put in there experimentation with drugs, alcohol, and sexual behavior. And obviously I'm going to do a difference. A 12-year-old who's into starting that stuff, I'm going to be pretty concerned about. But by 16, 17, they're starting to, that is kind of part of typical teen behavior. I'm not saying I condone it, but it is something where they're introduced to it and figuring out some of it. Obviously, there's a line where we have to get concerned, and it's not something we're condoning. And there's a difference between a teen who goes to a party and has a beer versus a teen who's blackout drinking every weekend. But just knowing that we put that generally in the realm of somewhat expected. And I will say one of the things with the pandemic is that a lot of this, I mean, and some of this as a parent, I kind of love this in some ways, a lot of this stuff has slowed down. We're getting a lot less calls on teens struggling with relationships or friend relationships, which is, you can look at it as a positive way, but it also is kind of sad because the teen years are that time when they're figuring out who they are in the world and having crushes or figuring out who they're attracted to, who they like, how they show that, things of that sort. So this is my, I'm going to say, typical teen behavior. Peer conflicts is also something which I've been a lot less this past year, but also something we do see with teens. I hate to badly stereotype girls, and my own daughter would kill me for saying that, but we tend to see a little more volatility in girl relationships. Doesn't mean every girl, doesn't mean it can't happen in male relationships either. This is weird. I'm having fun here with my, okay. So some of the things that we see that worry us, or that can be a cry for help. And the first one we're going to put in there, suicidal or homicidal ideation. A teen who's talking about not wanting to be here or no one caring if I live is something we really need to pay attention to, because that's alarming. A teen who's injuring themselves, where they're, could be cutting or burning or head banging, overseeing things on their body, or we're not seeing them. Maybe they're wearing sweatshirts that are covering their body, but they're doing things to intentionally harm themselves. Frequent angry outbursts, excessive aggression, that's, what I'm saying, breaking walls or just being very volatile around them. That's something that could be worrisome. And as therapists, we usually look for changes in behavior, attitude, appearance, school performance. And a lot of the times majority of the time, we look for baseline. If you had a teen who used to really care about school and now is, failing out and not really caring, that worries me more than your teen who was always kind of a C student, never really cared about school, still isn't caring about school. Things when we think about things like appearance and attitude. We also look at things like somatic complaints. A lot of us, and I'll put myself in this category, experience feelings through our bodies. So stomach aches, headaches, chest pains, unexplained, things that they're feeling could also be a sign that a teen's really struggling emotionally. We also look at things like hopeless, worthless comments, just really not feeling good about themselves or not feeling good about their place in the world. I also see things like, and as I got into this, the drug, sex, alcohol, repeated risky behaviors, where, this is a lot more, patterning over time, or sneaking out of the house, taking cars, can even put in the pandemic of, socializing without masks, particularly in the earlier stages when things were really kind of scary out there. I have no idea why this is doing this way. Okay. One of the things I've definitely alluded to is that this pandemic has really disrupted typical teen development. We know, there have been, losses, illness, financial instability, so many different things. But there also are things as well with teens who are, lost things like prom, lost after school activities, lost sports, lost eating lunch with their friends, things of that sort, and recognizing what that may have been like for our teens. So I'm going to try to do this in the chat. If people want to answer, what are some emotions you've seen in your teen during the pandemic, or things that are maybe different from the norm that you may have seen? And feel free to type them out. Lots of motivation, definitely. We've seen that. Hard. I know myself, I could speak to that. I've been working from home since last March. And it's, it's really hard to stay motivated. Nothing matters anymore, feeling angry, sleeping more. Definitely. These are all things that we have seen, and thank you all for sharing them with us. There are, flatness of emotions too. That's a really good one. These are a lot of the things we've seen, that we've heard from the teens who work our hotlines. I've seen in my own, we've experienced, callers, seeing things sad, distracted, angry, bored, anxious, overwhelmed, worried, confused, grieving, stressed, lonely. And I actually put peaceful in as a new one, because there are some teens that we have to acknowledge, and some families who've done really well in this pandemic, where the stressors of being on campus and social pressures have been a lot less, or it's been a time to grow as a family or become closer. So peaceful is the word, that might be a better word, but that's a word I've put in there to acknowledge that it hasn't all necessarily been bad per se. So what I wanted to, one of the goals to take away today is kind of understanding a little bit more sometimes why teens don't talk to their parents. And this could be talk to their parents about, and what I'm saying is usually why they don't talk to their parents about the stuff they're struggling with or the big things in their life. And so these are some things to think about or to remember. The first one, I'm gonna say, they don't want to overwhelm you. A lot of the times, as good as we are at hiding it or not necessarily good at hiding it, our teens know how stressed out we are. They know what's going on in our lives. They know we're worried about this bill or that, or this kid or that, or, or just grandma, grandpa. They don't want to be another thing to put on your plate. And they don't want to do that to you. They also worry if they talk to you about what's going on, that it might, take over your emotions to the point where you can't handle it as well. And it becomes more about you and, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Or why are you struggling this way? In which case they come to take care of you. And that wasn't what they were trying to get out of it. One of the things we try to do as parents, and I'm putting myself in this category, we try to fix it. We try to make it better. And this situation has not necessarily been one we can always make better. So, and that was really helpful when they were 7, 8 to, be able to go in and fix the situation. But now that they're teens, even though they might say they want us to, it kind of takes away their independence when we fix it for them. Also, they don't want us to get mad. Sometimes they may have things that they know are worthy of consequences, and they don't want to tell us to get in trouble. And I'm not saying we don't punish or we condone any behavior, but maybe at the moment where your teen comes to you and confesses the thing they did with their friends and how bad they feel about it is the time to be there and listen to them rather than get angry and save the anger for later. They also sometimes don't want you to think less of them. They, know that they're known as you're the good student, or you're the good kid, or you're the one they don't need to worry about. They don't want to be different than that in your eyes. And a few themes we probably felt the way with our own parents as well is we won't understand, we won't care, and we won't listen. We hear those a lot. And like I said, as much as I know these things, my own daughter this weekend said, why will you not just listen to me? I don't want you to tell me how things could be different. I just want you to hear my feelings. So that's something to remember. Then getting into some of the things that we do that make them feel this way. And again, this is not shame, blame, any of that. I do all these things as well, and usually do them out of love and a really good place. But remembering the things that we may do that make our teens not want to talk to us so much. We judge, why did you do something so stupid? Why did you do that? We try to fix. We sometimes use cliches like there's more fish in the sea, or, I can't even think of a good one right now, but just things that they're like, what? You don't get it. We deny or minimize their feelings. When was the last time you worried about something and someone in your life said, oh, don't worry about it, that's not a big deal? Did that make you feel better? No, it probably just frustrated you that they really didn't get what you were feeling or saying and didn't have the, bandwidth to share that with you. We do that to our teens all the time, where we say, oh, don't worry about that. That's not a big deal. Or, or we compare things of that sort. We lecture, which I think a lot of times when we start talking and they know it's a lecture, they completely tune out, have no idea what we've even said. Sometimes, I know I'm guilty of this, we the other side, or we try to analyze the situation. Your teen, I'm definitely guilty of this one, where your teen says, oh, blah, 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 didn't text me back. And it's like, well, what did you do? And maybe there is something to look at that your teen could work on some of their texting skills. But when we're constantly trying to analyze or taking the other side, that doesn't make our teens feel protected by us. And something to remember, that the way we respond to our teens when they're struggling or they come to us is crucial to their wanting to talk to us again. And I think that makes sense. I mean, for us, just other people in their life, in our lives. We have someone in our life who, we come to with our feelings and they don't make us feel warm and accepted. We stop talking to them. So these are important things to remember. So some of the things, and you're probably doing a lot of these already, but some of the just helpful tips that have helped me and other parents set the stage for positive communication in your family. Huge one, I keep saying this, and I am so guilty of it, listening more than you talk. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we talk, but most of us don't do that. So remembering that sometimes, or even asking your teen, do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to give you a suggestion? Do you want to hear what I have to say? Because sometimes they do want your opinion. Sometimes they just simply want someone to listen or to vent. Again, we talked about this briefly, validate and permit their feelings, even if you don't understand or agree. You may think what they're so upset about is literally the dumbest thing ever, or you just don't understand how they can be upset about this. This is the time to channel your empathy or think of what it's like to be a teen and have all these things coming at you, and, be able to accept it. And, I'm so sorry you're struggling right now. It sounds really difficult, even if we're not understanding why that's such a big deal. Empathy is a huge theme. I don't know if we'll have time today to show this, but my favorite video of all time is Brene Brown empathy video, where she just talks about the importance of empathy in our communication, to be able to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine what it's like, and I'm not saying our lives aren't hard by any means, or that we don't have struggles, but think about what it might be to be 15 years old and spent the last year at home with your parents, not being able to be with your friends, missing your extracurriculars, all that sort of stuff, questioning who you are in your friend group and what that might be like. Another thing, being clear what's up for negotiation in your family, that if you're going to be the parent you don't want to be the parent who constantly says yes, but you also don't want to be the parent who constantly says no, because if you're saying no to everything, they're probably going to go around you or find ways to defy you. So being clear on what's up for negotiation, that maybe, every Friday night your family eats dinner together, and that just is what it is. But maybe Saturday night there's some flexibility, so that you give a little and get a little. And then to that point, being willing to compromise and brainstorm together, instead of automatically saying no to everything they set forth, showing and setting them up for future life, that they know how to negotiate situations, that they know how to prevent a good argument, and they also know that I don't want to say you're their friend, because you're not, but an ally in their raising. Also think doing fun things together. We spend so much time as parents being on them and teaching them how to do this, or did you do your homework? Did you eat? Did you clean your room? But finding ways to do things that they like to do, whether it's learning Minecraft or Among Us or Fortnite, or, playing basketball, learning things on their terms goes a long way of wonders for creating a positive relationship. And I also think sometimes, I don't know if any of you experience driving with teens, you can have really good conversations because there isn't always the eye contact, because it's hard sometimes to just be always having eye contact. A lot of us don't drive as much or spend as much time in the cars, but things like walks or playing basketball or doing something where you're not having to look at each other is also a nice way to talk about things. I would also say, I think we don't have to always like our kids' choices or even, them in that very moment. But I do think we need to unconditionally love them and let them know that no matter what, we're still going to love them. Doesn't mean we can't get upset, doesn't mean we can't consequence, but that we are going to love them, that we do have their back. So a few other tips. A lot of those, you'll see a lot of the same things on same themes or going in the same lines. I don't know why some of them are loading and some are not. So, but I think making sure you're realistic, your expectations of your child are realistic for right now. This has been a different kind of year. I don't know if your kids are back in school right now, if it's hybrid or what it looks like, but everything just looks different. So making sure, again, not striving for mediocrity, not saying school doesn't matter or rules don't matter, but is this expectation realistic for what's going on right now with my teen? I also think it's important to recognize that we parent the child we have. If you have multiple children, you know how different they all can be. And so parenting the child that we have in front of us, not their sibling, not the child you wish you had, not the child you were, not your best friend's child, but this child that you have right in front of you. And I think along those lines of believing in them, you know, not every child is going to be a straight A student or a varsity athlete or a, you know, great singer, composer, dancer, but every teen has something amazing about them. So believing in that, helping to, you know, cultivate that as well. I also think one of the things we can do is modeling for them how we take care of ourselves. So when we're stressed out, maybe we call a friend, maybe we go take a deep breath, maybe we take a walk, maybe we eat, but things we can do that acknowledge we have feelings too and how we take care of some of those feelings. And then I think because I'm a therapist and that's always my bent, I'm always going to say, you know, modeling or just knowing when professional help is needed. You all, you know, you have an amazing team, amazing resources, and you're just no stigma in getting help for your teen. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent or you did something wrong. Actually, I mean, it means what an amazing parent you are, that you're reaching out for help for your child who struggles. So things we look at is their stress interfering with their daily functioning? Do you have a teen who's not passing classes, who's not getting out of bed, who, you know, just feels hopeless all the time? That might be a time when professional help is needed. And going back to just, I think this is a really profound quote. If we take a minute to read it, and I think this is all relationships, or all, you know, not just with our kids. I think the biggest communication problem we have is we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. We're always busy thinking, okay, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say to this? And sometimes the most powerful gift we can give to someone is just listening to them. And when we don't listen, we send the message that what they're feeling isn't important, or that we can't handle it, or there's something wrong with them. And that's not the message that we want to give. You know, that's not the message that we want to give to our kids or other people in our lives. Then put in here a little visual of, we call a term, you know, active listening. When you're really in the zone with someone, you're really paying attention, you're really getting what they're saying. And these are some of the components. I think probably the biggest thing, if you're trying to have a conversation or a moment with your teen, making sure it's a moment where you're not distracted by other things going on, that you don't have your phone sending work emails or texts, or you're not dealing with another child or making or things like that, because it's so easy for our teens to feel like we're not important to them, which doesn't mean we drop everything. I think it's okay to say, you know, I need 10 minutes and then I can really devote some, you know, some time to you. A lot of us have teens who, you know, decide they want to talk to us right as we're about to fall asleep, or they are about to fall asleep. And it's like, oh, really? This is when you want to talk to me? Let's say if you have a teen who's not the most communicative and not always sharing with you, and there's a window to talk to them, take it. If it starts becoming every night or it starts to become problematic, then that's definitely something to address and work on. But if you have that moment, then definitely take it. I know I said eye contact. I know I said eye contact could be tough with teens, so take that one with a bit of a caveat. But I think some of the things that we think are important with active listening, you know, are things like open-ended questions, like, tell me more about that. Reflecting feelings, it sounds like this. Giving some silence, giving some space. Understand, like empathy piece, listening to understand. And again, I don't know how many of you know Dan Siegel, but he's a great parenting guru who says, you know, if we want our kids to talk to us, we don't want to interrogate, we don't want to judge, and we don't want to fix. So this is actually video, but in the interest of time, I think we're not going to play it. Maybe we can send out the link separately if people want to watch on their own. But I think it's just a great, I mean, everyone loves Raymond. We know obviously it's a pretty old show, but it's just a great example of how active listening can really work in action to get a conversation going where you want it to go. And this is, again, if we have time, we can come back to this, but this is my favorite video of all time about empathy and how empathy can be different than sympathy. And I think it's applicable to all, to all people in our lives. But what I did want to do, just again, because mental health bent and we're talking about a difficult time in our kids' lives and our lives as well, is take a few minutes to talk about some of the things we might be seeing in our kids and when to worry. And so this is a great visual. You can take a picture of it. I'm not going to go through every single thing of just how to recognize anxiety in ourselves and others. And a lot of the big things we see sometimes, stomach issues, we see rapid heart rate, we see trouble breathing, we see trouble concentrating, we see stomach aches. And I can't tell you of a lot of parents and teens I know who've been to the emergency room during this pandemic for, things like not being able to breathe or a rapid heart rate, feeling like they're having a heart attack. And really it comes to be that they're dealing with anxiety or dealing with, having a panic attack. So something to think about. The good news about anxiety, there's a lot of tips and techniques that you can use to cope with some of this anxiety as well. And recognizing that in our teens as well. We see our teen has a stomach ache. Well, what did you eat? If you gone to the bathroom, things like that, but also recognizing that maybe the pain they feel is really intense, but it might not be from something they ate. It might be from something that's going on in their lives. We'll talk about depression briefly. Like I said, this is an interesting time to be talking about mental health, because I think with the exception of alcohol and drug abuse and hopefully thoughts of death, probably a lot of these we can relate to on a personal note of how we felt this year and how our teens have felt. We've been encouraged to be isolative. It's been hard to concentrate. It's things of that sort. I think where we're concerned is if we have a teen who's, not getting out of bed, who's not passing their classes, who's not coming out of the room, is just not able to cope. That's when we're looking to get outside help. We also say, or alcohol, drug abuse, thoughts of death, we're concerned. We also say with depression, a lot of the time it has to be 2 weeks of a sustained symptom. So 2 weeks, this isn't as like one day where they're just not getting out of bed, but this is a pattern over time that you're seeing. And I want to take a moment to talk about suicide. And this is not a suicide presentation by any means, but just being aware suicide is the second leading cause of death among teens, 10 to 24. So just being aware of warning signs. And a lot of them tie into the anxiety and depression that we've talked about before. But sometimes we see things like helpless or hopeless comments, not planning for the future, not wanting to be here anymore, giving away prized possessions because they know they don't need to, they don't need them anymore. And I'll use that if you have a teen who comes home and says, Jesse gave me their iPhone. That to me is a cause for alarm. Why is Jesse giving away the iPhone? Maybe they got a new one and don't need it anymore, but teens don't necessarily give away things that way. So that's something to pay attention to. Also looking at increased risk behaviors, just not seeming to care about their safety as well. And even talking about not wanting to be here, talking about being in so much pain, better without me. So if you're seeing or hearing some of those things, definitely time to get some intervention and to talk to them about what might be going on. So some quick tips, and I realize we're going fast on really important stuff, so hopefully you can take a moment to look at the slide after the fact, or we'll have a break for questions in a few moments. But I think ways we can best support our teens is knowing what to look for. knowing again, what's typical, what's cause for alarm. And I think a lot of the times as parents, it's also just trusting our guts. You know your teen best. And if you feel like something's off, take that seriously. I think not being afraid to use words like depression or suicide, or to discuss things that have happened among their peers. TV shows can be really good to, is this something you see in your friend group? Is this something you've dealt with? We talked on already. A lot of us are very physically present these days. If you're, working from home or your setup is different, but we're not always emotionally present. We're busy with our phones. We're a lot of other things, being able to be both. I think remaining calm, really hard to do as a parent. If a teen's telling you something, I'm hoping I don't lose you, I'm getting an internet is unstable. Remaining calm when our teen's talking about something that's definitely anxiety producing. Again, we talked about listening more than you talk. That's a key one. Empathy, again, channeling your inner teen. I don't know what your teen years were like, but I'm sure we all can relate to much of just feeling not understood by a parent or someone else, and just remembering what that might be like. And then again, we talked about this, modeling self-care and coping, how we take care of ourselves. I think sometimes we feel as parents, we need to protect our teens from our emotions, which I'm not saying our teens need to take care of us or that it's their responsibility, but sometimes I think it's important for them to see that we struggle too, but these are things that we do when we struggle. And again, we talked about professional help. You can see my bent here that I'm going to keep stressing that. So, to give you a quick tip of how to check in with a teen that you're concerned about. And one of the things is just to ask. If we, even about suicide, if we ask directly without judgment, people will usually tell us the truth. It's a matter of us being able to do it in that way where, I've noticed that you don't seem to care about school anymore. I've noticed that, it seems like you're really struggling. I've noticed all these different sorts of things. And you care, you're paying attention, and encourage them to talk. If they do open up to you, encourage you to stay and listen. Let them express what's going on. This isn't the time to fix. This isn't the time to tell them, oh, I don't understand that. It's the time to, wow, that sounds really tough. Wow, that really is a lot. And then get help. This is our info at Teen Line. There's also a 24/7 suicide prevention hotline that if you or someone in your life is struggling, you just need tips, is a great resource. I wanted to also put in some resources. Us in the bottom, Know the Signs, great suicide prevention campaign. Suicide Prevention Lifeline, like I mentioned, is 24/7. The Trevor Project is an amazing resource for teens who are identified as LGBTQ or questioning their identity. It's 24/7, and they have online resources as well. And then this is some of the ways that you can find us. We have a social media presence. We have a lot of info on our website. We do have a parent blog and a parent resource center. I will freely, not as developed as we all would like it to be. So you can definitely find some good stuff there, not as much as I wish there were. What we're going to do, I think Will is going to do some announcements, and then we're going to turn it over to questions. But this is my email. So feel free, if you have any additional questions that don't get answered today, or just something you want to know more about our program, feel free to reach out to me at that address. And then thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate that with all the things you have going on, you're choosing to be here, choosing to be here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Will, and then I think we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much for all that useful information. I myself am a parent of a preteen, and slowly finding out that it's feels like it's a different language, right? Trying to learn these different video games that you brought up, just trying to find some commonality so we can discuss some things. But I definitely do appreciate that. Right now, folks, if you don't mind, I'd like to just make some quick announcements, and then we can turn it over to questions. I did get some direct messages, so we will get to those. I'll bring those up to Cheryl, and hopefully we can do what we can to answer your questions. But please stay tuned for our next parent workshop. It's titled 10 Healthy Habits for Positive Mental Health. That will be Tuesday, May 18th. Our Spanish workshop will be at 10 a.m. and our English workshop will be at 11:30 a.m. And just like all our previous other workshops, we will be recording for those of us that can't be, that aren't able to join us live. That being said, we are on YouTube. If you are able to access the district channel, so the LBUSD YouTube district channel, our parent workshops, our FRC parent workshops are on there as a playlist. So you can view our previous workshops that we've had. And we are trying to keep up with the times in social media. You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram. Our handles are at LBUSDFRC. Exclusively on our Instagram page, there is a link for our link tree that you can find all the resources that we share as well. Thank you once again for joining us today. At this point, I am going to stop our recording and I will allow you to share your video and you can unmute, but if you can just hold off on that until after I read out the questions that were direct messaged to me.